Hey guys, it's Cece, and today I'm here to do a very late book haul. Not being able to film as much in January because I was sick, I feel like is going to kick my ass for the rest of the year. I am so behind on filming stuff that it's ridiculous. And this video is just one example of that because today I'm talking about the books I acquired in December. Not January, December. January and December were bad enough as far as acquisitions that I don't want to combine them because this will be an unruly video that no one will watch. So we're doing two separate hauls, and this is the December haul. December I went a little buck wild when it came to purchasing books. I have two very large stacks of books that I purchased myself, and then a pretty small stack of books I was sent. Let's see what the number was, the actual number. 30 books that I acquired in December. Oh, the old days where I used to do a haul if I had acquired 10 books in a month, and usually I didn't reach that. I don't know what happened to me, but we are not going to focus on that any longer. For now, we are going to jump into the actual contents of the video. I'm going to start by talking about books I was sent, so that'll be a pretty short stack. It's a couple of ARCs and a couple of subscription box books, and then I'm going to talk about books that I bought at various places, and the end of this video is going to be a book outlet haul because I bought a bunch of books from Book Outlet. Let's just jump in. Let's talk about the books I was sent. So I have 7 books that I was sent, 4 ARCs and 3 finished copies. My finished copies include Crier's War by Nina Varela. This is the McCreight exclusive edition of Crier's War, so I opened this in an McCreight box. It also means that this is a signed copy. There you are. This is an enemies to lovers female-female romance YA fantasy book. In the queer girl community last year, it got 11 billion reviews. All of the queer girls were talking about this book, and so I'm very excited to read this. I was also sent a copy from the publisher, but I have since sent that off to someone else, so I kept my McCreight exclusive cover. And then I have 2 books that were sent to me in unplugged book boxes. So in the adult fiction box, I don't remember which month it was, I got Queen of the Conquered by Kacen Calendar. This is set in a Caribbean-inspired fantasy world. It's about a main character named Sigourney Rose, who was the only survivor when her family was massacred by colonists. And now in this area, the king of the islands has said that his successor is going to be someone from the eligible noble families, and Sigourney sees this as a potential for revenge. I have been really interested in this book. I've only read one of Kacen's other books, which I didn't really love, but I'm feeling like that was a me thing, so I have a bunch of their other books, and I'm really eager to get into this one. Also, in one of the YA Unplugged book boxes, I got Beyond the Black Door by A.M. Strickland. This is a YA fantasy with an asexual main character. This main character can journey to other people's souls when they sleep, but she also, every time she travels, has this vision of a black door that she knows that she can't go through, and this kind of starts out when she decides to go through that door. I am always up for any books about asexual characters, but this is a YA fantasy with the word asexual used on the jacket copy, which is amazing. I was also sent 4 ARCs, 2 of which I'm not going to talk about too much because I reviewed them in my January wrap-up, so you can go and watch that if you're curious. So we have Of Curses and Kisses by Sandhya Menon. This is coming out in February, on February 18th, and it is a YA retelling of Beauty and the Beast. I know a lot of people are hyped for this one. It was not for me. I wound up giving it 3 stars. If you want to hear more, go watch my wrap-up. I also have A Beginning at the End by Chen. This came out on January 14th and is a post-apocalyptic book about 3 characters in a San Francisco in the process of rebuilding after a serious illness wiped out most of the population. Again, you can go and watch my January wrap-up if you want to hear more, but this one's already out. And then I have 2 books from Echo. This is the first time I've ever reached out to Echo to possibly review their book, so I was really excited when they sent me both of the books I requested. We have The Only Child by Meyer. This is a book about a criminal psychologist who discovers a connection between gruesome murders and her stepdaughter. It is a thriller that has been on a lot of early hype lists, and it is being released in February. I'm not sure which day. Well, I'm not sure exactly which day it is, but this was translated by Yuan Jung, and I'm really excited to read it. I also have a book called Days of Distraction by Alexandra Chang. This is described on the back as a coming-of-adulthood tale. It is about a character who is a journalist at an up-and-coming tech publication. She's basically just been getting passed around from person to person whenever she asks for a raise, whenever she wants to be recognized, and then her boyfriend gets a job offer in New York, and she decides to kind of cut and run, leave this area, and go off with him. And during that, she's questioning her place in an interracial relationship and questioning how she fits into a world that refuses to see her. This is another one on a lot of early hype lists, so I was really excited when they sent this to me. It is coming out in March of 2020. Okay, now let's talk about all the books I bought. Like I said, I have two very tall stacks of books, so yeah, that's just what happened. In December, I bought a lot of books. So first I want to talk about 3 books that I purchased at an Amazon bookstore. I was honestly just curious. I had never seen a physical Amazon books, and so I went in, I bought stuff. That's what these are. I got Sabrina and Corina by Fajardo-Anstine. I also talked about this in my January wrap-up if you would like to know more. But this is a story collection about Latinos of indigenous descent living in Denver, Colorado, and I thought it was a really interesting collection. It was on a lot of lists last year as far as being one of the best fiction books published last year, if you're curious. I also got 2 books I know almost nothing about that I only bought because they've been really, really hyped to me, and so I was curious about them. We have City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. I know nothing about this. This is adult fantasy, and it is really hyped in a lot of, like, the book review circles that I'm a part of. It's set in 18th century Cairo, and is part of a trilogy that is finishing up this year. So I saw it. I have been tentatively really interested in reading this series, and I bought it. And I also got a book called The Future of Another Timeline by Annalee Newitz. I bought this book because it was listed in an article for 2019. There were a bunch of books that were released in 2019 that were about queer girl time travelers. Like, that was the theme in some circles of publishing in 2019, and I read one of those books, This Is How You Lose the Time War, and it was one of my favorite books of the entire year, one of my favorite books ever, so I saw this and picked it up because it was also included in that list. Just from glancing at the summary, it looks like there is a 1992 timeline and a 2022 timeline. That is all I'm going to look at for now. I am into queer time travel. That's all I needed to know. I also have 2 books that I got from Value Village. So we have A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. This is a book that I talked about in my top 10 to read in 2020 video. It is pretty celebrated literary fiction about a group of boys after they graduate college moving to New York together. It's supposed to be super triggering and super sad, but I've also heard amazing things. I'm going to get to this in 2020. I don't know when because it is like an 800-page book about tragedy, but I did really want to read it because this was one of the most celebrated books of the 2010s. Like, this received so many awards and it was on so many best of lists. So I saw this at Value Village and I felt like it was the perfect time to give it a shot. And then also while I was at Value Village, I found Reconstructing Amelia by Kimberly McCreight. I've never read anything by Kimberly McCreight before, but I have heard good reviews of her books on, like, the thriller side of BookTube. This is about a mother who is informed that her 15-year-old daughter, who she thinks is, like, the most brilliant person, has cheated at school. This is, like, horrifying, and she drives to the school only to find out that her daughter has committed suicide. She jumped from the school's roof. Then a little while later, she gets a text that just says, Amelia didn't jump. And so this follows this mother investigating her daughter's life and trying to answer kind of the mystery of all that. I've been getting more into thrillers. I've been trying to get into more thrillers, so that's why I picked up this book. Next up, I have this very large stack of books that I got from the Goodwill. I went, you know, I'm not even gonna say it again. I just bought a lot of books from the Goodwill. Let's leave it there. Which of these do I know anything about? Well, I can tell you about the one I've read before, and that is The Short Second Life of Bree Tanner by Stephenie Meyer. This is part of the Twilight saga. I have been interested in collecting copies of the Twilight books because they were so relevant to me when I was a young reader, when I was like 13 years old. I reread them in college, and while I don't support the books, I do enjoy reading them as a bit of like, I wouldn't say guilty pleasure because I don't like that term. I've talked about that before. I don't really think that there should be such a thing as a guilty pleasure. If you enjoy a piece of fiction, you shouldn't have to feel guilty about it. I just don't hype these books on my channel, but I have enjoyed them, and I would like to have access to them so that eventually I can reread them again. Just return to a bit of nostalgia. This is an Eclipse novella, so it is set, like, alongside the third book in the series, Eclipse, and it is about a character named Bree Tanner, and this is, in my opinion, like, the best written thing in the Twilight Saga. I actually really, really like this novella. So, bought this. The rest of these I mostly bought because I knew the author, or I have seen the cover and seen other people giving that book good reviews. So we have Britt-Marie Was Here by Frederik Backman. This is my third Frederik Backman book that I've purchased, and I've still so far read none of his books. So I'm not allowed to buy any more until I read more of his work and discover if he's actually an author I'm going to enjoy reading from. According to Publishers Weekly, this is a heartwarming story about a woman rediscovering herself after a personal crisis, and it is about a woman who moves to a small town and ends up getting a job at a crumbling recreation center where everyone from this, like, supremely untalented children's soccer team hangs out. I'm curious. I have really been interested in Frederik Backman, so I bought this because I just keep buying Frederik Backman, assuming that someday I will read them and like his books. I've also got The Beauty That Remains by Ashley Woodfolk. One of Ashley's 2020 releases, not one of her releases. She has a 2020 release I'm really interested to read. So I saw this at the Goodwill and I thought it would be good to grab it so that I could read her, I believe this was her debut. Yes, this is her debut novel, and I always like to see an author's debut when I'm jumping into a newer release of theirs. This is a YA contemporary about three teenagers who are brought together by music and separated by tragedy. And that's kind of all I know. I believe there's a gay character. Yes, there is a gay character, and this is a YA contemporary by a Black author. I think it is one of those ones that has gone kind of under the radar. Not as many people know it exists, but the people who have read it really love it. So I was curious to grab a copy. Plus, I just love a rainbow book. I'm so tempted every time I see a book with a rainbow. I also have Seconds by Bryan Lee O'Malley. Bryan Lee O'Malley is the creator, the author of the Scott Pilgrim graphic novel series, which I didn't love. I love the Scott Pilgrim movie. I didn't really get into the graphic novels that much, but I really love Bryan Lee O'Malley's style, and this is one of the books that has been on my Goodreads TBR for the longest period of time. I've been really, really interested to read it. This is a graphic novel about second chances, but sort of a supernatural take on that, where something happens in this girl's life, and she writes down the things she's going to do differently, and then everything resets, and she gets a second chance to do things. I love stories with that premise. I love alternate reality stories or things that take on different timelines. I'm really interested in those, so I was interested in this for that as well. And now 3 books I absolutely know nothing about. I'm just going to tell you about the fact that I own them now. We have Special Topics in Calamity Physics by Marisha Pessl. Marisha Pessl is most known for Night Film, which is a thriller I honestly didn't like. I didn't like Night Film, but Special Topics in Calamity Physics is one of those books that I read Night Film when I was in college, and I would bring it to my classes, and one of my friends was like, "Have you read Special Topics in Calamity Physics? I think you would love it." And it's just stuck with me because she was not a person who recommended books often, and it really felt like I think that you would love this book. So despite the fact that I didn't love Night Film, I am interested in giving Marisha Pessl a second chance, and I don't know anything else about this book. I also have The Proposal by Jasmine Guillory. We all know that I am one for getting these Book of the Month editions. I've got to. I have to have them. I know that this is a romance, and I know that Jasmine Guillory is big right now in, like, the romance circles of BookTube, so grabbed this. And I also got Manhattan Beach by Jennifer Egan. I know Jennifer Egan because she wrote A Visit from the Goon Squad, which was a book that came up over and over and over again when I was doing research for my top 10 to read in 2020. A Visit from the Goon Squad is one of the biggest releases of the 2010s, so I recognized her name. I hadn't heard as much about this book, but this is a Book of the Month edition. I also know that this is a noir thriller, So I was curious. Like, I want to read this, and if I like it, I might actually give A Visit from the Goon Squad a chance. But honestly, I was just kind of curious. The last part of this haul is going to be dedicated to Book Outlet. I'm not sponsored by Book Outlet or anything, although it'd be great if they would do that, because I just placed another Book Outlet order. So, Book Outlet, sponsor me. Would love to be like a vlogger friend. But I purchased these books actually in November of last year for the Black Friday Cyber Monday sale. They just didn't arrive until December, so they are technically a part of my December book haul. This is a pretty even split between books that I've read before and books that I really wanted to read, so let's just go ahead and talk about them. So first, I have 4 books that I have read before, I just didn't have copies of them. We have Rebel Heart by Moira Young. This is the sequel to Blood Red Road, which is a YA apocalyptic fantasy. I did not think I had read Rebel Heart, but when I went to add this on Goodreads, it said that I had rated it when I was still in high school. So at some point in time, I read Rebel Heart, which means the only book I haven't read of this trilogy is the final one. But I wanted to own this book so that I could reread Blood Red Road, which I also own, reread this, and then read the final book in the trilogy. I don't like this cover as much. They redesigned the covers after the original release of Blood Red Road, and I've been bitter about it for like 10 years, but it's fine. I am hoping I can get into this and finish the trilogy and like feel a sense of accomplishment. We also have The Summer of Jordi Perez and The Best Burger in Los Angeles by Amy Spalding. This is a female-female romance about a fat, aspiring fashion designer who has just gotten her dream job, a internship at a local boutique, which she hopes will be the jumping off point for her fashion career and her plus-size line. And it is about her falling for the other intern in the job even though they are competing for the regular position at the end of the summer. It's adorable and wonderful. I finally have a copy of The Summer That Melted Everything by Tiffany McDaniel. This was one of the first books that I got sent for review on my channel. I got sent an ARC of this book, an e-copy from the author, and I loved it. It was one of my favorite books that I read that year. This is about Ohio in 1984, I want to say, during the most intense heat wave that ever hit Ohio, and it is about a young boy who comes into town who people believe to be the devil. It is a really brilliant novel, and I have desperately wanted a copy ever since I read it, so I finally got myself a copy of a book I adore. And the final book that I've already read before is Whole Metal Girls by Emily Skrutsky. This is YA sci-fi about 2 main characters, Aisha and Ki, and they have both been turned into genetic soldiers for this, like, future society that lives aboard spaceships. Aisha basically gave up her bodily autonomy so that her family would have enough money to get the medications needed to keep her younger brother alive, and Ki doesn't remember why she made the choice to become a Sella, because she led an incredibly privileged life, and she doesn't remember why she would give that up to become this. This has an Aro Ace hijabi main character, as well as a Japanese main character, and there are a bunch of other queer side characters and characters of color. It's just one of the most interesting YA sci-fi books I've ever read, so I wanted my own copy. Okay, and the rest of these are books from Book Outlet that I purchased that I want to read, I haven't read yet. So we have Queenie. This is by Candace Carty Williams. This was a 2019 release that I was really excited for, so I bought it because I wanted to buy it originally when it was released, and I just didn't get the chance to pre-order it, so got it on Book Outlet, which was exciting. This is described as Bridget Jones' Diary meets Americana. It's about a character from a British Jamaican family just trying to find her way through life. It's basically about this girl who's caught in a spiral of her own making, who doesn't understand why she just keeps making bad decisions over and over and over again, and I'm really excited to read it. We've also got Want by Cindy Pon. This is a book I talked about also in my top 10 to read in 2020 video. This is YA sci-fi, right? Yes, it's YA sci-fi about a world where the air is really terrible. It is, if you breathe in this air, then your life expectancy is cut in half, and there are these suits that you can wear to increase your lifespan, but they are so expensive that only the rich have access to them. So it's creating this class divide where the rich get to buy longer lives. And this is about a main character who decides to investigate this company that makes the suits, and investigate the possibility that the people who make those suits are also the ones that have caused this pollution. I think this is going to be a brilliant book. A lot of people have really hyped it, so can't wait. I have another bit of YA sci-fi here. The continued adventures of me getting more into sci-fi. I have The Disasters by M.K. England. This is a 2018 release, I want to say. Might be, yes, 2018. Yes. This is about a main character who washes out of a, the equivalent of this universe's Starfleet. They're going to Ellis Station Academy. Max, the main character, is a pilot, and he's washed out, he's gonna go home, and then a terrorist attack completely interrupts the, ship that he was going to take home, and him and 3 other washouts escape, but they are blamed for this terrorist attack. So they are on the run, and they are also trying to clear their names while being this ragtag space crew of washouts. And it sounds brilliant, and it's been super highly reviewed. It's also gay as fuck, which is my exact shit. Just putting that out there. I also got The Speaker by Tracy Chee. This is the sequel to The Reader, and I did already have a copy of The Speaker, but I'm gonna be honest, I bought this for, shallow reasons. I bought this for shallow reasons. I had The Reader and The Storyteller, which is the 3rd book, in hardcovers, and The Speaker in a paperback, and it was just really bugging me. So, despite the fact that I haven't read The Speaker yet, I wanted to have all 3 in hardcovers. The Reader is a YA fantasy with an East Asian coded main character, about a world where reading in the written world doesn't exist, and then the main character discovers a book, and she has to teach herself what the symbols in this book means, and as she reads it, she discovers that stories of real people, stories that this book shouldn't be able to know, are in the pages. So I'm really excited to read more from this series. I just wanted a trilogy that matched. I also have Girls Burn Brighter by Shobha Rao. This was a 2018 release that was one of my most anticipated releases of that year, and I didn't get the chance to buy it that year, so now I have this copy. This is about Purnima and Savitha. It begins in India, and it is about these 2 characters who basically have 3 strikes against them, in that they are poor, they are ambitious, and they are girls. And they meet when they are quite young, and then they are separated. So Savitha is gone, and Purnima leaves behind everything she knows to try to find her friend. This is set in India and America. It was, like I said, one of my most anticipated releases of 2018, and even though I didn't see quite as many people reading this during the release, the few people I have seen who managed to read it have loved it and said that it's heartbreaking and gorgeous. So I'm really, really happy that I own this now, and I can read it and let it break my heart. Second to last, we have The Death of Mrs. Westaway by Ruth Ware. I read In a Dark, Dark Wood by Ruth Ware in October of last year, and really liked it, and I decided to give Ruth Ware some more shots. I want to read more of her books, and The Death of Mrs. Westaway was, the most well-reviewed book of hers until her newest release, The Turn of the Key, and now everyone's like, you have to read The Turn of the Key. I will get there, but now I own The Death of Mrs. Westaway, so I'm gonna read that first. I don't know anything else about this book, because much like In a Dark, Dark Wood, there's no description on the back, and there's no description in the front. So I'm gonna go into this one blind, but I'm actually a pretty big fan of that, because I went into In a Dark, Dark Wood blind and wound up really liking it. We'll see if I like this too. And finally, the last book that I'm going to talk about in this video is The Accident Season by Moira Fowley Doyle. I bought this book because I have read and adored Moira Fowley Doyle's 2 other books, The Spellbook of the Lost and Found and All the Bad Apples. She writes magical YA fantasy books set in Ireland focused on queer main characters. I don't actually know if The Accident Season is queer, because this is Moira's earliest release, and sometimes with queer authors that happens, that the earliest release isn't queer and the rest are. This is about a family, and every October accidents plague them and accidents cause tragedies, and this is about the main character Cara, her ex-stepbrother, and her best friend the year they are 17 when things are worse than ever and lines between fantasy and reality start to blur. I love the way that Moira Fowley Doyle writes, so I was really excited to purchase this one so that I can read everything that Moira has written. Okay, all, that is it. That is my December book haul. I will be filming and uploading a January book haul soon, continuing to get back on the right track with these videos, catching up from being behind. If you have read any of these books, please let me know your thoughts about them down in the comments below, and let me know which ones I should prioritize, which ones I should read first, and which ones I should let sit for a minute. Other than that, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in another video very soon. Bye!